Hello, and welcome to our Saturday, July 6th concert at the Bellingham Festival of Music. My name's Ryan Dakota Farris. I'm speaking to you now from the University of Washington School of Music, where I'm a doctoral student studying orchestral conducting. I have the privilege of being one of the two inaugural conducting fellows at this summer's festival, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be sharing this pre-concert chat with you about the works you're going to hear on tonight's concert. So, the first work is called Starburst by Jessie Montgomery. Jessie Montgomery is an American composer, chamber musician, violinist, and music educator from New York City. As a contemporary African American composer, her compositions focus on the vernacular, improvisation, language, and social justice. Here's how she describes her work Starburst in her own words. This one-movement work for string orchestra is a play on imagery of rapidly changing musical colors. Exploding gestures are juxtaposed with gentle and fleeting melodies in an attempt to create a multi-dimensional soundscape. A common definition of a starburst: the rapid formation of large numbers of new stars in a galaxy at a rate high enough to alter the structure of a galaxy significantly. I actually had the privilege of conducting this work last month with the Bainbridge Symphony down in Bainbridge Island, Washington. It's a really fantastic work, virtuosic, extremely colorful, and I really hope you enjoy it. The second work on tonight's program is the Concerto in F by George Gershwin. Written in the year 1925, commissioned by Walter Damrosch, director of the New York Symphony Orchestra, the Concerto in F for piano and orchestra is an even more ambitious venture than the previous year's Rhapsody in Blue. Gershwin wrote a full-fledged concerto in time-honored three-movement form. It's a work that's all Gershwin, right down to his own orchestration. This is something that wasn't true of Rhapsody in Blue, which was actually orchestrated by Ferd Groffet, who was a member of the band that premiered the work. Whereas most American composers of his era were writing in the fashionable and modernist European styles, Gershwin cultivated his mother tongue, the only truly American vernacular: jazz. The Concerto in F is jazz all the way, and a remarkable achievement for the 27-year-old tunesmith George Gershwin. This concerto has it all: stunning virtuosity, big tunes, colorful orchestration. Here are Gershwin's own words about it. The first movement employs the Charleston rhythm. Now, for those who aren't familiar or who might need a refresher, the Charleston rhythm is one of the most common rhythmic idioms in jazz. So it goes something like this: bum, 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 bum. Gershwin uses it in the concerto something more like this: bum, 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 ba, bum, 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 bum. You'll hear it all over the place. Continuing on in Gershwin's words, the movement is quick and pulsating, representing the young, enthusiastic spirit of American life. It begins with a rhythmic motive given out by the kettle drums, supported by the other percussion instruments, and with a Charleston motive introduced by bassoon, horns, clarinets, and violas. The principal theme is announced by the bassoon. Later, a second theme is introduced by the piano. The second movement has a poetic, nocturnal atmosphere, which has come to be referred to as the American blues, but in a purer form than that which we are usually treated. The final movement reverts to the style of the first. It is an orgy of rhythms, starting violently and keeping the same pace throughout. This piece has incredible melodies, and I think you're going to walk out of the concert hall whistling a few of them. It's going to be played by our amazing soloist, Stewart Goodyear. Stewart is a phenomenal pianist, improviser, and composer, and I think he's going to blow you away with tonight's performance. Finally, tonight you're going to hear the Symphony No. 9 in E minor by Antonin Dvorak. Also known as the New World Symphony, this was composed in 1893 when Dvorak was the director of the National Conservatory of Music of America in New York City. This was a post he held for 3 years. Most of the symphony was composed during his 1893 stay in a small rural Czech community in Spillville, Iowa. It premiered in New York City in December of the same year, 1893. At the premiere at Carnegie Hall, the end of every movement was met with thunderous clapping, and Dvorak felt obligated to stand up and bow. This was one of his greatest public triumphs. It's one of the most popular symphonies of all time and a personal favorite of mine. Astronaut Neil Armstrong even took a tape recording of the New World Symphony along during the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. This symphony is structured in the standard 4 large movement form. The first movement is in the standard sonata form, beginning with a slow introduction. This slow introduction features a hymn-like theme in the cellos. Now, as a cello player myself, I can't help but notice that Dvorak also began his Symphony No. 8 in the same way. The exposition is based on 3 thematic subjects. The first, in E minor, is notable for its announcing and responsive phrases. It sounds something like this. The second is in G minor and undergoes a transformation such that it resembles a Czech polka. Gets repeated a lot of times. The exposition's closing theme, in G major, is known for being similar to the African-American spiritual Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Each of these great themes is explored in turn as the movement progresses. Now, the second movement opens with a series of majestic brass chords, which seem to suggest the idea of once upon a time, as if starting a story. Then, a solo English horn plays the famous main theme in D-flat major. Dvorak was said to have changed the theme from clarinet to the English horn because it reminded him of the voice of Harry Burleigh. Harry Burleigh was an African-American student of Dvorak's, who later became an accomplished composer and baritone singer. This theme from the Largo was adapted into the spiritual like song, Goin' Home, by Dvorak's other pupil, William Arthurs Fisher, who wrote the lyrics in 1922. Often mistaken for a traditional spiritual, it's really by Dvorak. The second movement's middle section contains a passage in C-sharp minor, evoking a nostalgic and desolate mood, which eventually leads into a funeral march. This is followed by an interlude that incorporates the movement's main theme, as well as the first movement's theme. The Largo is concluded with a soft return of that main theme on the English horn, along with the introductory brass chords. Now for the third movement. Dvorak was known to have read and admired Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's epic poem, The Song of Hiawatha. In an article, Dvorak wrote that the third movement, Scherzo, was suggested by the scene at the feast in Hiawatha, where the Indians dance around the fire. The stirring rhythms of the fast Scherzo section, which sounds like this. Ba-da-dum, bum, 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 ba-da-dum. These stirring rhythms are interrupted by more lyrical interludes, which are more reminiscent of the Czech folk dances from Dvorak's native Bohemia. Something to point out here is Dvorak's interesting use of percussion instruments. Now, other than the standard timpani, Dvorak rarely uses any percussion at all in any of his symphonies. This is a trait shared by Dvorak's mentor, Brahms, who only used percussion in his Fourth Symphony, and just a single triangle in the third movement, something Dvorak's doing here as well. Dvorak indulges himself in the use of a triangle in this movement and a single note for the cymbals in the last movement. His use of the tuba and piccolo is also unusual. The tuba only plays during the beginning and the ending of the second movement. And the piccolo, doubled by the second flute player, plays only a single phrase, a couple of measures in the first movement. Curious. The fourth and final movement is an allegro con fuoco, allegro with fire. The introduction for the fortissimo strings is famously similar to John Williams' theme from Jaws. Now you might notice it also uses the Charleston rhythm, bum, 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 although this is a little bit before Gershwin. The main theme, announced later by the brass, is bold and heroic. Then a second theme presented by the clarinet, is more lyrical above tremolos and the strings, and it really winds out a very long, beautiful melody. The development section not only works these two themes together, but recalls the main themes from all of the other movements to bring a sort of continuity to the symphony as a whole. This continues and builds into a dramatic, climactic coda, which resolves finally from E minor to E major, ending the symphony in a moment of triumph. So, on that note, we look forward to welcoming you to our concert Saturday, July 6th.